Yes.
I call the April 11th, 2022 Ludington City Council meeting to order. Welcome and thank you all for your attendance. Before we proceed, please check your electronic devices and ensure they are silenced. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Trujano.
Present.
Counselor May.
Here.
Counselor Winchevsky.
Here.
Counselor Johnson.
Here.
Counselor Stibbits.
Here.
Counselor Kane.
Present.
And Counselor Bolger.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. In lieu of an invocation, please join me in 20 seconds of silence and self-reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Please rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recently, I was approached by Police Chief Kozel, who wanted to propose something that I'm in full agreement with, and that is the celebration of the officers of the police department here in the city of Ludington as they achieve certain milestones in their career. And tonight, I want to start the meeting with this ceremony. Chief, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. Well, let's back up a little bit. Even prior to myself taking the position here almost 2 years ago, we've been light one sergeant on our department. We have a total of 4 that are allocated, and we've been running with 3. We've been working tirelessly to try to get someone promoted from within our department. We've actually advertised outside the department. Well, tonight is a accumulation that I'm honored to be able to promote somebody from within our police department. As you can see, there's a large family here to support him. Mike, why don't you come on up with your family? I'll do a little bio on Mike as he's bringing his family up. To me, it's an honor when you are promoted to have your family pin you with your next badge, and that's what we're going to do tonight. All righty. Mike Ford, currently an officer with our department. He graduated from Ludington, so he's a homegrown boy. Graduated in 1998. He's with the U.S. Army and National Guard for 8 years. Thank you for your service, Mike. He was stationed at both Fort Riley in Kansas and Marquette, Michigan. He has a BS in history with a double minor in English Lit and criminal justice from Northern Michigan University. Went to the Police Academy in Northern Michigan and fulfilled that in August of 2005. Started working for the city of Muskegon in February of 2006. Worked there for 4 years, was in the neighborhood policing unit for about 4.5 years. Moved back home, worked for Mason County from August of 14 through December of 19. Was a Marine deputy supervisor, then a road patrol sergeant. So he does have some history as a command officer. He started here at Ludington Police Department. We're glad to have him. He started back in December of 2019. His wife Mandy is here with us today, and there, as I always say, 17 kids, but there's actually 5. Daniel, who was going to pin him today, Bailey, Brege, I asked him that right before he came out here. I'm sorry, Breach. Joseph and Micah. Daniel, I'm going to give you his badge, and would you do the honors of pin on your dad?
Don't poke. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that round of applause. Michael is sergeant. Today is his first day as a sergeant. He'll be working tonight as a night shift. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Your Honor, for the time.
I took some pictures, I'll send them to you.
Thanks, folks. I think we can all agree that is a worthwhile endeavor and hope to see more milestones celebrated. I'll open the floor for public comment. I request anyone wishing to address council, please step to the lectern and proceed after stating your name and address. Please speak directly into the microphone and address all comments to this chair. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. If the time limit expires during any comment, I ask that the speaker respect the limit, finish their sentence, and yield the floor. There will be another public comment opportunity following communication from city officials. And the floor is open. Who would like to go first?
My name is Ron Sobraski. I approached the council here about a month ago and asked about this situation. And I don't know what's changed between now and then, but I trust that you're all going to make the right decision.
Into the microphone, please.
I live in PM Township. I own commercial property and operate a business in the city of Ludington. And we've all heard about the good and the bad and how we all feel. And it's a very controversial subject. But what I want to talk about a little bit here right now is the history. Back in the 80s, I can remember when the state first started the lottery system, and the only place that was licensed to sell lottery tickets was a grocery store in Baldwin. And guess what? All them lottery tickets found their way back to Ludington. They were distributed here. People would pool together, and here they are. Now you're seeing lottery tickets that are being sold in gas stations along with beer and cigarettes. I think we'll live long enough to see marijuana sold in gas stations. With that being said, that was in the 80s. Now in the 90s, I worked in PM Township with the Planning Commission to regulate wind towers. And we weren't prepared for them, and we didn't know where we were headed, but we devised an ordinance that the people in the township was good and could live with, and it's working well for us today. I think what we need to do today is to get ahead of the situation. I think the city council needs to enact ordinances and regulate and control this situation to our residents' needs. And you can write the ordinance and write to how we need to make it work for our best interest. So I trust that the board will make the right decision, and I would hope that I want to stipulate that I want to know that I would vote to approve the marijuana situation here and make it work. Thank you.
My name is Craig Nelson. I'm a pastor, but I'm also a licensed physician. I have 20 years experience working in emergency medicine, 10 years here in Detroit and 10 years here in Ludington. And I'm going to counter what the gentleman in front of me just spoke. I am here to speak against pot shops, the selling and dispensing of marijuana. Actually, I'd like to well, to keep it out of Ludington. I have experience with seeing it as and it is called legitimately a gateway drug. It is a drug. Nobody ever gets into drugs thinking, I'm going to be a crack addict or I'm going to be a coke addict. They start with what are called gateway drugs, and marijuana is a gateway drug. Some people can use it and stay with where it's at, but other people will use it and move on to other drugs. And in my field of emergency medicine, I have dealt with the whole gamut of drug supply and problems with it. I do not believe it to be a beneficial thing to have in Ludington. Last week in the paper was speaking about the finances, and they were dangling the bucks in front of the council to approve it. The paper did not acknowledge the personal impact that marijuana and drugs have on a family, on a person, on a community. Drugs present a problem, and it will only get worse as you allow something like a marijuana pot shop in. So I would respectfully ask that you turn down the concept of marijuana shops in Ludington. Thank you.
Put my glasses on, sorry, getting old. Jason Adams, 608 West Ludington Avenue, also a DDA board member. 5 years ago, several people, myself included, gathered in this room for a public input on a public safety meeting to discuss the potential for illegal marijuana dispensaries in the city of Ludington. On that day, 4 citizens spoke in support of and 1 against allowing said businesses. In response, the citizens who supported were told by city officials and local law enforcement at that meeting they did not know what they were talking about and the money involved was not that much and not worth pursuing. 5 years later, it turns out those who supported legal dispensaries did know what they were talking about. The monies were in fact worth pursuing, and the reefer madness propaganda that the Public Safety Committee decided to base their decision on was completely false. In the years to follow, by continuing to not allow dispensaries in Ludington, we've chosen to turn down hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax sharing money. We've turned down developers and business owners who want to improve dilapidated properties and invest in our community. We've turned down dozens of jobs. We've turned down huge amounts of charitable donations that every other community is seeing from their local dispensaries. And we send both locals and tourists to spend dollars and spend their days in towns other than Ludington. Meanwhile, the only problem our surrounding communities who have chosen to allow dispensaries is facing as a result is where do we spend all of this money? Lastly, and most poignantly, on November 6th, 2018, there was an election in which every citizen of Ludington had the opportunity to cast a vote on Proposal 1, the ballot initiative that legalized use of recreational marijuana and the establishment of provisioning centers in the state of Michigan. And our citizens overwhelmingly voted to support this proposal. More people cast a vote on Proposal 1 on that ballot from Ludington city limits than any other initiative on the ballot, including the next governor of our state or the next mayor of our city. Ignoring this, City Council voted against the clear position of its citizens and took a wait-and-see approach. We have waited, we have seen. All of the city's questions have been answered through other communities. It's now time to use facts, act, and welcome these businesses into our town. Thank you.
Larry Ames, 708 Diana Street. First of all, thank you, Jason. That made more sense than anything I've heard on this issue in a long, long time. I'm here as an advocate for a dispensary because I'd like to see Ludington move into the future. Okay, it's coming. It's going to be national soon. Why do we want to delay the inevitable? Marijuana is already here. We all know that. And so are drugs that are far worse than marijuana. If indeed marijuana is a drug at all that is harmful. Certainly substances affect everybody in different ways. To say something's a gateway drug, you know, birth, I guess, could be a gateway drug to reality. When I just recently returned from my winter in Arizona, and when I go to marijuana dispensaries in the Arizona area, I see clean, modern, professional buildings run as professional businesses. The notion that stoners and potheads are hanging around outside is false. They're largely innocuous to the neighborhoods that they're in. So what are we afraid of in Ludington? What are we afraid of? A gateway drug? You want to keep it out of here? I'm sorry, it's here. It's here. All you're doing is making people who want to do it in a totally legal way drive somewhere else to get it. The people I see in Arizona dispensaries largely are senior citizens, much like many of you on the board. And they're there because they want to get their gummies because it makes them feel better, because it eliminates the pain in their bones and their joints that we are all feeling. Why deny? Let's make it happen. Thank you.
I'm Brian Ford. I pastor Living Word Church here in Ludington. I live at 6535 Linden Street. I would love to go into a moral debate about the devastating effects of any drug, but let me talk on a different level. I was speaking with one of our state legislators. I apologize. I should have gotten his permission to use his name. I'm sure he wouldn't oppose, but statewide, marijuana sales only bring in about $52,000 a year in tax revenue, and the added police protection necessary for the increase in crime, which it does bring, is far more than the tax revenue that comes in from marijuana. Also, we're a family community. We're a recreational town. People come here not because they can get Detroit. They come here so they can escape Detroit. If you go to Muskegon, there's a pot shop on every corner. Every other billboard is advertising cannabis. I was just in Muskegon and driving down a street that I lived in Muskegon for 10 years. I remember when that was a mom and pop restaurant. I remember when that was a machine shop. I remember when that was something else. And that was in a 1 mile stretch. And I talked to a number of people in Muskegon who come to Ludington. They love Ludington. And they have the same shoreline we have. They have sand dunes. They have beautiful state parks. Why do they come here to vacation? Because we're not Muskegon. We're not Detroit. And that's why people come here. And we'll lose what I believe is one of the most beautiful towns, a family setting that we can never recapture if we allow marijuana sales here. How much revenue will we lose from families not coming to Ludington because it looks like the other cities? They can go to some other town that doesn't have pot dispensaries. And how much will it affect the mom and pop shops we have here in town? If we lose even 10% of foot traffic, a number of these small businesses can't make it. And if we lose 10% of our visitors because they don't want to bring their children where there's a pot dispensary on every corner, how many businesses will we lose? And ultimately, will we lose more tax revenue than what we're bringing in by adding cannabis to Ludington? I strongly encourage you to vote against this and think about the future of Ludington and not the immediate effect of some added tax revenue.
My name's Dawn Britton, and I own the Sandbar in Ludington, and I am from Muskegon. And I've watched Muskegon grow a lot. And we watched it from being pretty much demolished. Now on Laketon Avenue, there's probably like, 10? I don't even know how many pot stores, but it's beautiful down there now. Everything is clean, pristine, and it looks beautiful. It's looked its best in 20 years, I would have to say. I own the bar in Ludington, and I see a lot of things. And there's more than just one bar in this town. And there's a lot of things that go on in this town, just like any other town. But I feel that the main objective is to have money come into this town, not just during the summer, but in the winter time. We have a lot of businesses that are starving. I'm thinking about not even being open in January, February. We need other businesses that are going to draw people into our town. I know people that call Manistee, the medical marijuana stores. Hey, can you bring me some marijuana down, the gummies down? And they'll drive down here. People pay for them to drive down here from Manistee. Is that what we want? No, we want the money here in our town to help with things that are going on in this town. Even in the winter, when we have all these businesses, like shopping businesses, the Hallmark store, they're starving. I mean, you think about all the stores that are around here. They're not making it in the wintertime, but if we include this medical marijuana shops come in, recreational / medical marijuana come in, then I think it would give us more revenue and people would be wanting to come here more, even in the wintertime. Yeah, I like to be here in the summer, but I also like Muskegon too. You know, I like to be down in Holland. I like to go everywhere, you know? But what I'm saying is that we need the money all year round, not just summer. And I think it would really benefit us for even in the winter months. Because the proof is right here if you guys want to look at it. I'd like to give you guys this if it's okay.
If you'd hand that to the clerk. Right here, please.
So you can see the numbers. All right. I'm finished. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Mike Shaw, 302 North Lavinia. I can say a couple things about Muskegon. I worked there 5 days a week, and it's not the pretty picture that, I mean, God bless them. There's some good parts, there's not, but be that as it may, it's not about the money. It's about the kids. It's about families. And putting those signs up in Ludington sends a message to the kids. Kids are impressionable. They're going to see that. They're going to think it's okay. And you know, those that want marijuana, you're right. They're going to get it. They'll deliver it to you. That's their choice. Fine. But we have an option. The state law allows every municipality to either opt in or opt out. And a number of us want us to stay opted out because it's not worth the cost. It's not worth the price. Let me address the federal position here. We have not legalized marijuana yet federally. I know it's going that way, but I'll point this out. Our state law still allows each municipality to opt in or out, whether the feds legalize it or not. It's not worth it for the money. It's not worth it for the kids. Those that want it can already get it, and sure enough, they will. They'll go ahead and do it. But we don't have to advertise it in this community. If they want it, let them get it. People will deliver it to them. That's good. But we don't want to advertise it and put it out there so kids can see it, because kids are impressionable. So I'm a 34-year Department of Corrections veteran. I see the other side of it. Let me tell you, I've seen a lot in 34 years. Every time I say that I'm not surprised about something, I get surprised about something else. So I see the results of it. It's not good. Please, let's stay opted out for marijuana. Thank you.
My name's Ryan Reed. I've got a building downtown on the 100 south side of the 100 block, 100 West block in Ludington. And I just wanted to thank the council for taking up this issue of the alley behind my property and that on the block. I'm holding what is now almost a vintage copy of a Downtown Development Authority board meeting information packet that Heather and the board put together to consider the closure of the alley, which this body voted on prior to several new faces, which is why I'm here. I just wanted to let y'all know that we started this probably in 2013, considering the, the degrading alley situation and what to do about it, and the opportunity to close that primarily to vehicular traffic and create a pedestrian-centric space as both an alternative to the two state highways that we have in our main street in Ludington and James, and then also as an alternative to what I consider to be an unsustainable maintenance situation that is kind of the end state of our alley, and our alley kind of being a foreshadower for other alleys in town. So thank you for taking that issue up again. Thank you for those of you who were here who voted to give us that authority to close the alley in the past. Would very much appreciate your support of the DDA board going forward at this point and seeking some MEDC dollars for the completion of our vision that we've worked almost 10 years for. And with regard to the dispensary situation, I called many of you who were on the board back a couple years ago. I'd just like to reiterate, I think to try to simplify take the passion out of it, take the kind of the cooked books and information from both sides, and simply just say that the laws of the land around us have changed. This substance is legal to possess and consume recreationally, and it is your charge as city leaders to navigate our community through that reorientation of that relationship. We have abided by the laws of the land up to that point, which is obviously not allowing dispensaries when those weren't legal. But now that they are, really the only way to purchase that substance in our community is through the illicit drug trade or some sort of DoorDash-esque kind of a mule situation, I guess, a legal mule situation, as it were now, from a dispensary town to ours. So that was the.
Got to wrap it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Annette Quillen from Court Street. I was here because, I'm trying to understand city government, which I don't. I received I'm on your email list to get all these things in my email, and on 4/8/22, I received a notice of public hearing for Michigan Community Development Block Grant, but it said it will be conducted April 13th, 2020 at 4 p.m. City Hall. Well, that was a few years ago. And then the dollar sign in there, I'll read it to you because I don't know how it's supposed to be read. It's $179,00.00. DDA and funding will also be used. The issue is it's mistyped. So I'm not sure when I looked at that what this was supposed to be about. But when I went into your council packet, I saw an authorization resolution for the 100 South Alley Restoration and Activation Project. So I'm assuming it's already been planned. And is there going to be hearings, or is everything set in concrete or stone or whatever? And I'm sure you'll probably provide these answers to me during the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Ron Dwyer, 6281 Iris Road, Pere Marquette Township. A few years ago, they started selling the CBD products. Now, I don't even know how many they're selling that. First thing they do is they tell the warnings, please keep them away from your kids, the gummy bears. Well, that tells you right there, if the warning you keep them away from the kids, why are they even being sold? Secondly, there's already too many liquor stores in this area, and there's probably a good chance that all the liquor stores are going to get the licenses to do the marijuana. So then you're going to have a double whammy at how many locations? I guess if people want it and if Scottville's got it legal, why can't they go to Scottville? Scottville don't have much to draw anybody there, so maybe that'll help them. There's a big billboard on the way to Manistee telling they'll ship it mail order, they'll deliver it to you. Well, I guess, why can't people do that? Right now, without marijuana being legal, it's very easy to find in this town, and everybody knows that. You make 2 phone calls and you can have that. So I don't think we need it in Ludington. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Evan Horahan. I live at 109 North Washington Avenue. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the council this evening. I've been a Ludington resident for almost 5 years now. My wife grew up here. I've been coming here since 2008. I love this town. It's why I moved here. I moved here for many reasons. We've heard about how beautiful this place is. Nobody needs to be told that. Everybody knows that already, which is probably a big part of the reason we live here. I don't have any children, so I can't speak directly to some of the issues that people have expressed about family values and impressionability of young children. I do think it's incumbent upon each of us to lead by example, and that starts in the household. So that would be one thing to consider. I think we need to give each person their responsibility to set the right example for their family. And we all know that there's a lot of temptations in the world. There's a lot of, we've heard liquor stores and bars and cigarettes and booze and this and that. These all have warnings about, children, keep away from children. Nobody wants to leave the liquor cabinet unlocked for young kids to get into. So respectfully, I don't see a huge difference between marijuana and alcohol, which, as we've heard, is available widely in this town, in this county, in this state. As far as crime and the unsavory element, I've also visited, as Mr. Ames talked about, I visited dispensaries in other areas, and I will echo what he said. They're clean, they're modern, they're well-regulated, nobody's hanging around, there's no riffraff, you're in, you're out. In fact, I've seen plenty of much sketchier illicit activities in dimly lit places. So my preference would be to regulate this and to have this in the open. And allowing dispensaries doesn't necessarily mean we have to have a billboard on every street. It doesn't necessarily mean we need a dispensary on every block. This gets into what the gentleman from Pere Marquette Township said, talking about the wind turbines, and let's set some ordinances about how to regulate this. It doesn't have to be a free-for-all Wild West. And I would respectfully ask the council to move forward with approving dispensaries in a controlled way, in a meaningful way, with city resident input. Doesn't have to be, as I said, on every block. So that is my opinion, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Debbie Shaw. I live at 302 North Lavina. A few years ago, we lost a young person. His name was Henry McDougall, to drug driving. The drug was marijuana. A year ago, we lost 3 people, a young couple and their unborn baby, to a drunk driver, another young man. About a week ago in Oceana County, we lost another young person is under investigation, but to a supposed alcohol incident. About a few days ago, there was a rollover accident that is still under investigation, but that also involved, they think, alcohol. There was 2 young people, a young couple and 2 young children in the back seat. My question is, or what I want to say is, community is about people. These are real people, real lives. I've heard all the statistics about this and that, but these are people that they're gone because of a marijuana drug or because of an alcohol incident. I would like to see, instead of marijuana shop, more programs for drug and alcohol abuse for our young people and for other people. You can't pick up the paper nowadays without seeing all these incidents. It's just, it's alarming. It's alarming. We've been here for many, many years, and we're from the Detroit area. And it's just really, before I even knew this was going to come about tonight, I was just shocked because I thought, my goodness, what is our world coming to? And I would like to see programs like Teen Challenge that deal with a program from 8 to 12 months, or 12 months to 18 months, I'm sorry, that help our community, to help our people to get back on their feet again. That's really all I have to say, but I just want to say it's really not about the money, but it's about the people. And our most vulnerable people are people that are at risk. I realize there's bars, there's everything out there, but why do we have to bring something in that could be more of a risk for these, especially our young people? That's all.
My name is Gordon McDougall. I'm Henry's dad, 607 New William. A couple things I'd like to just point out based on what I heard tonight. I hadn't prepared anything for this. Lottery tickets, wind turbines, those aren't drugs. They're not a concern to public health and safety. We did have a vote where people voted to legalize marijuana. But you know what? They didn't vote in this city to have it in their backyard. Children did not vote. They don't have a vote. So when you need to consider every person, not just the voters. Children are just as important, they are our future. One man stood up here and asked, why not now? That right there is why not now. My son is the reason why not now, and why not ever. We don't need this anymore. We've smelled tragedy. Scottville wants to blatantly disregard public health and safety, that's on them. People here want it, they can drive there to Scottville and be with their own kind. But I'm disgusted by what they're doing in Scottville, and I don't want to see it happen in this town. This is about public health and safety and protecting the children and doing what needs to be done for every person, not just those that voted so they could smoke it themselves. That whole proposal was not well thought out. Well, it was well thought out by a certain group, but it was not well explained. There are a lot of things in that proposal, and that is why right now Colorado has cut back on some limits. They have changed things, and Colorado is very pro-marijuana with their Governor Polis. Very pro. They've even made changes. We haven't made those changes here yet. We have kids in ER for those gummies because they're not being taken care of. I do believe family is a lot of the issue, but we also have families that are split, where they are one week with one person, 1 week with the other parent, and they don't always have the ability to have both parents there to bring them up the way we'd like to see them brought up. I thank you very much for your time.
Hi, my name is Lori Shaw, and I own a daycare. I'd like to speak about the kids as well. I feel like kids are a lot smarter than what we give them credit for. And I had a 10-year-old little girl tell me about having to go to her dad's house and having to brush off marijuana just so she could eat her cereal. And I hear stories like this all the time from kids. Kids are incredibly smart. I don't think it's a positive thing. I know we have heard that Bloodington is a beautiful place. I've lived here since I was 6 years old, and I'm 41 now, so do the math. But I think that we have such a great thing here. And the lakes are so beautiful, and people have come for years just for that reason alone. And we don't need that extra marijuana. And I got to speak out for the kids because I work with them on a daily basis. Thank you.
I'm Katrina Ford, and I live on Maple Street. I am a mom of 4 kids, and I also work at Covenant Christian School with kids all the time. And so, just echoing what these other people are saying, the pressures of life that are going on right now in kids' homes and just in the nation and in the world in general, kids are looking for something to settle the pressures. And, there's other things out there, alcohol and things like that kids are turning to, unfortunately, to numb what they're feeling because they're not sure how to handle the things that are going on in life. And so I just think that if we make it that much more accessible to them, it'll be a thing that they turn to at a younger and younger and younger age. It'll be the thing that's passed around on the playground at the marina, whether we want it to be or not. If it's so easily accessed, it will be passed around at a younger age. So that is my thoughts on that.
Hi, my name's Jaime. I live out in Hamden Township. And we were all kids at one point. My father was an alcoholic, passed away in January from pancreatic cancer. Growing up, seeing him abuse a substance led me to follow the same footsteps, right? So I graduated out of Scottville. It was easy to get everybody cannabis, marijuana, weed, right? It was so easy to get it then. I'm not saying that I don't think this is something that should be happening in Ludington. I don't agree with it. And I've been on both sides. I've have plenty of friends that have been hurt, that have been in car accidents that say, hey, you know what? It's a way of healing the pain. It's a way of this, it's a way of that. Well, I think a lot of that, I relate that to my father a lot. What was he trying to numb? What kind of pain was he dealing with? I don't know, right? I honestly don't know. But I wish that at some point, versus me waiting later in life to get into my mid-20s to find out that there is other ways of healing that pain, of healing that numbness or that void that we're all trying to fill yet today. If there was something, somebody would have told me before then, and not seeing my dad pass it on to me, then it would have been a lot easier for me not to fall and to follow those footsteps. So standing up for the kids, I feel the same way. I don't drink now. I don't smoke now. I don't do any type of drugs now because I am trying to make sure that my kids see a good example versus what I had at home growing up and seeing what kind of damage it could cause and what kind of damage I did cause growing up and in my early years of marriage with my wife. So I don't think it's a good idea. And I think we should get over, for a lot of the older people in here, I think we should get over ourselves and look for the kids and not just what we want ourselves right now because we have the pain. Okay, we all have a driver's license. Drive 6 minutes, 10 minutes to Scottville or do what you got to do on your own time away from kids so that they don't follow these footsteps that then later down in life will be harder for them to break because they don't know any other way but besides of what we are teaching them now. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sam Hernandez. I live at 1039 Vogel Street. I was born and raised here in Ludington. And I hear mention about, bringing in money to this community. As I was growing up here, I remember back in the day, we used to have some good clean stores here. Good clothing stores. We used to have Ravens. We used to have like Ruches, nice jewelry stores. You know, if you guys want to bring money in, why don't we get some good clothing stores back in this town? Get some good clean stores back in this town. I remember when I was a kid, you'd walk downtown at, you know, any store, and there's always people out and about buying stuff, you know. Back when people were talking about, you know, support your community, you know. I feel, yeah, I like to support my community. I like to spend my money here. But if you want good quality things, as far as like clothes, sometimes you got to go out of town for that. I think if we could get some good clothing stores here, get some good clean stores here, it'd keep people here. It'd keep people spending their money here. And not only that, for the tourists, when they come, they would go downtown and spend on clothes. I'm so totally against the marijuana. Growing up here, you know, I got involved with stuff and I shouldn't have, and every time I did, I got in trouble. And since I've been clean and sober from everything, I haven't gotten in any trouble. And to me, I've ministered to my kids. Do not even attempt to try this stuff, because I know the road and the path it's going to take you. Because I done that. I went down that road. It's a bad road. And luckily, my kids have done well. They haven't fallen in my footsteps of my bad times, but now they're following my footsteps of how I am now, going to church, living life for the Lord. And, you know, this sends a message to our kids if we start bringing in stores like this. They're going to think it's okay. And then as me as a parent, as I was trying to teach my kids not to go down that path, and you allow a store like this in town, it's going to be like, okay, why is this acceptable? And I don't need to, you know, like I said, I just think a lot of this on the kids, you know, if you want to keep your kids safe, don't open the doors to stuff like this. And that's all I got.
Floor remains, excuse me, the floor remains open for comment. Anyone?
Tom Rada, Dowland Street. This will be a cannabis-free comment. On March 16th, I requested a variety of public records through FOIA dealing with the city's composting contract, which was adopted by this council on the 28th. Your FOIA coordinator sent me an extension notice 1 day late. The extension allowed the city to respond by last Thursday, the 7th, at the latest. I still haven't received any records as I write this. Before that last meeting, I had appealed another FOIA request, but was never put on the agenda or came up during the meeting. I reminded the city manager after the meeting that I expected the council to address that appeal at this meeting. But once again, it has remained off the agenda. The basic argument was that neither this council nor any official claimed attorney-client privilege for a written opinion that was used as the basis for going into closed session on February the 28th. This body could have easily claimed privilege with a simple vote to declare it before going into closed session, but they never did. Our city attorney has shared written legal opinions publicly in the past, most recently at the December meeting of the Parks Committee, and last year when discussing Anchorage at Waterfront Park. Despite potential lawsuits in both cases, nobody claimed these were privileged communications then. Nobody is on record claiming the privilege on February 28th. The city attorney gave his oral opinion on the siren in March 2021 when he advised the Parks Committee that a judge might look at the need to relocate the siren due to demolition to not likely be looked at as a significant reason to reinstall it as it no longer serves a municipal purpose. Among other cautionary advice that may have helped support the current lawsuit the city is facing. The public is rightly curious as to whether the city attorney's advice has changed since then. But over 2 hours of closed sessions in the last couple months, and likely another hour tonight, will be used for considering his opinion dealing with public policy out of sight of the public. I asked a simple question to City Manager Foster on how the city's attorney written opinion on the siren in December differed from the written opinion offered in February, and was brushed off and told that such an explanation or comparison would not be made. That reply arrived with another late FOIA response. The City Council needs to affirm that they are committed to FOIA and the Open Meetings Act laws, because their recent record is showing they have grown lax in transparency and accountability. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to offer public comment? I see none, and now close public comment and move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Before seeking a motion to approve tonight's agenda, I direct your attention, council, to a laid-down document from the city's Freedom of Information Act attorney. Action on this document is required. I seek council's unanimous consent to add this action item to the agenda under the mayor's report.
So moved.
Without objection, this item is added. Tonight's consent agenda consists of the approval of the council minutes of the March 28, 2022 regular meeting, the approval of bill payment for the period commencing March 28, 2022, and the adoption of this agenda as amended. Do I have a motion to approve this amended consent agenda?
So moved.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Johnson, second by Counselor Truzano to approve the consent agenda as amended. Council, we have any questions or further additions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next up, we have committee and staff reports. Here first from the Finance and Personnel Committees, Counselor Johnson.
Okay, I'll try to make this as quick as possible, Your Honor. We had first reading at our last meeting on this issue to approve a 5-year recreational license agreement with Harborfront Condominium Association. So I will move to approve the 5-year recreation license agreement with Harborfront Condominium Association.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Johnson, seconded by Counselor Winchesky to adopt ordinance number 472-22, a 5-year recreational license agreement with Harborfront Condominium Association as presented. Council, any questions or additions? As this is an ordinance, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Stibbits?
Yes.
Counselor Bolger?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor May?
Yes.
Counselor Truzano?
Aye.
Counselor Winchesky?
Yes.
Counselor King?
Aye.
All ayes?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion is carried.
Next item, Your Honor, a resolution to create City of Ludington Brownfield Authority. The creation of a separate City of Ludington Brownfield Authority will allow for the flexibility in attracting development to the city, while also focusing our efforts on projects identified in our master plan. Additionally, the goal would be to work with Pere Marquette Charter Township and the City of Scottville in the administration of this, so that we can also have good coordination amongst these three entities. The creation of a City of Ludington Brownfield Authority will require additional financial monitoring and report creation out of the clerk's office, expenditures related to the minute taking at meetings, as well as expenditures related to the creation and administration of the authority, all of which are reasonable expenses as project approved. So I move to approve the resolution to create a City of Ludington Brownfield Authority.
I'll support the motion.
Motion by Counselor Johnson, seconded by Counselor Stibbits to adopt a resolution to create a City of Ludington Brownfield Authority as presented. Council, do we have any questions, concerns? I hear none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion is carried.
And then I would like to make a motion to set a public hearing proposed for the resolution establishing a Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for April 25th, 2022 at 6:30 PM, which will be our next city council meeting.
You have support?
Second.
John.
Motion by Counselor Johnson, seconded by Counselor Terzano to set 6:30 PM, April 25th, 2022, as the time and date to hold a public hearing proposing a resolution establishing a City of Ludington Brownfield Redevelopment Authority as presented. Any questions? In favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
And then we have an MDOT performance resolution for state highway right-of-ways. Michigan Department of Transportation has updated their Form 2207B performance resolutions for governmental agencies. The changes include removing the word utility from municipal utility and now allows for other uses besides utilities. It allows the local unit of government to construct, operate, use, and/or maintain utilities or other facilities or conduct other activities on, over, and under state highway right-of-way with and adjacent to its corporate limits. This resolution will not directly impact the community, but will allow staff to apply for a wide use of permits within the MDOT right-of-way. There are no costs associated with this action. The city does not apply for the MDOT permits. If the city does not apply for the MDOT permits, we would be unable to continue to use the MDOT right-of-way for events and other uses. So I make a motion to approve performance resolution for governmental agencies allowing city manager and city clerk to apply for MDOT right-of-ways.
A second.
Motion by second by Councilor Winchevsky to adopt a performance resolution for governmental agencies, allowing the city manager and city clerk to apply for Michigan Department of Transportation right-of-way permits as presented. Council, any questions?
I just have a comment of explanation, maybe. If we can just put this in English terms, we have to do this every year, and this allows us to hold like the 4th of July parade where we have to close the MDOT street and Friday Night Live activities. So this is a long title for something that we have to do every year. So that's what it is.
Any other comment? All those in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
This next item, approve the Pure Marquette billing adjustments. If I could go to the city manager
Of
to
course.
discuss this, so I don't
Absolutely.
have to read this whole thing.
Absolutely. It was like 4 paragraphs I wrote down there. Just as a kind of an introduction for council and the public, as well as a Pure Marquette Township trustee. Prior to 2015, the city has a water and sewer services agreement with Pure Marquette Charter Township that allows for the city to sell water and sewer services to township residents, businesses, the like. We have similar agreements with the city of Scottville, as well as West Shore Community College now in Amber Township. In 2015, when Michigan Power was brought online onto the city's water system, an amendment or an addendum was created within that existing agreement with Pure Marquette Charter Township that designated that all Charter Township residents, regardless of where they hooked up at, were eligible for the wholesale water and wholesale sewer rates. Unfortunately, at that time, in 2015, the change in the billing wasn't done. on our end. They didn't catch it on their end until obviously now. Several months ago, a new treasurer was appointed in Pure Marquette Charter Township. She caught on one billing a difference or discrepancy in the bill rates, and that kind of started this long discussion. So the amount that you have before you, the $105,836.01, is essentially the amount of bills overbilling at Linlook Lift Station and at just individual Pure Marquette Charter Township homes that are provided sewer service were charged more than what they should have been. And so that is why the request is before you today. And then the way, if approved by council this evening, the way that would be essentially refunded back to the township is what it would be spread out over the 4 quarters of the 2022 into 2023 billing cycles. Did I
Thank
explain
you,
that
Mitch.
clearly? Okay, thank you.
If there are no questions for the city manager, I will make a motion to approve the offsetting of 2022 Pure Marquette utility billing payments to reimburse overbillings from 2015 to present.
Second. Motion by Counselor Johnson, seconded by Counselor May to approve the offsetting of 2022 Pure Marquette utility billing payments to reimburse overbillings from 2015 to the present. Once again, any questions, council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
And then we have one budget amendment. During the recent audit, there was an adjusting journal entry made to the 2021 financial statements, which resulted in an additional budget amendment. This amendment is now before you for your consideration. Capital outlay expenditures in the general fund were overstated by $10,000 as a result of an audit reclassifying entry for work on the Loomis Street bathroom project, which was initially recorded in the major street fund. The city budgeted to add $81,100 to its fund balance in 2021. At year end, actual revenues in the general fund exceeded actual expenditures in the general fund by $143,812. So I move to approve the 2021 final budget amendment.
I'll support.
Motion by Counselor Johnson, seconded by Counselor Stibbits to approve the 2021 final budgetary amendment as presented. Any questions, council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion is carried.
And the next item, contract for assessing services. Dan Kerwin, president of Darwin Appraisal Services, has served as the city assessor for the past year and has made a positive impact on our tax assessment roles. From making improvements to the data to helping train city staff to begin to help administer the service into the future, he has been a valued addition. Mr. Kerwin has also received positive reviews from both the city clerk and treasurer through his day-to-day work and his assistance with the Board of Review. As his one-year contract is now up, we are in need of either extending him for a longer period of time or look to issue a new RFP for assessing services. With his performance this year, city staff felt confident in extending Mr. Kerwin for a 3-year contract. The contract extension is at the same rate he was paid for this past year and will only adjust as the number of parcels changes. And this is first presentation on this, so we don't have to do any action on it. And the last item. For years, property owners have been gathering to discuss the 100 Southwest Ludington Avenue alley and the possible restoration of that space. We have a resolution for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation's Public Gathering Spaces Initiative grant for $1,179,000 to help fund this project. DDA funds and donations will fund the remainder of the project. This project has been an ongoing initiative of the DDA and local property owners since 2013. So I move to approve the Michigan Economic Development Corporation grant agreement for 100 Southwest Ludington Avenue Alley Restoration and Reactivation Project.
I'll second.
Motion by Counselor Johnson, seconded by Counselor Winchesky to adopt a resolution authorizing a Michigan Economic Development Corporation Public Gatherings Spaces Initiative Grant specific to the restoration of the Southwest 100 block of Ludington Avenue's alley as presented. Council, any questions?
I have a couple comments and questions, if it's okay. We have been working on this for a long time, this alleyway, and so it's come up again and again. Heather, I think there's a public meeting coming up, public hearing. When is that exactly?
It's on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And there was a typo in our original posting that was corrected right away to reflect the current year. So, and that is correct. That did go out incorrectly, but it was corrected right away. So it is on Wednesday.
Where will it be held at?
It'll be here at City Hall.
And then I had another, if Mitch or Heather could explain a little bit about the financing this time around. It's a little bit different than it was when we looked at it before.
A little bit. Let me touch on the grant portion of it first, because that's a little different than what is normally expected, and then I'll let Heather kind of go on the matching portion. This grant is a part of a larger push from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation on this public spaces grant program. It's through their community development block grant. I don't want to use all the acronyms with everybody in the audience, but these are typically funds that are very specific in nature. So in this case, they are very specific to public spaces, creating spaces that the public can utilize for whether it's restaurants, activities, any number of things. Because this has been a project, as Mr. Reed pointed out during his public comment, that's been around since 2012, 2013, this was the first project that was identified by both DDA as well as staff as an opportunity, because part of the reason why this is coming up right now is as a part of the ARPA, or the American Rescue Plan Act, they are pumping in close to $400 million into these projects. And we will never see, I hate to say, use the same phrase over and over again, but we will never see this sort of money go into public infrastructure ever again. I mean, we will be paying for it for decades, but we will never see this sort of investment ever again. And so the opportunity to take advantage of it at a 90-10 split for a match is pretty impressive, and something that I think the DDA as well as staff thought important to jump at. In addition, what we're trying to do is also look at a secondary grant. There's another grant program, again through ARPA, that the Right Place out of Grand Rapids, the Economic Development Agency, is applying for, and we've submitted this project to be a part of that. That grant is a 50-50 match, but that one will be awarded later. So if the city happens to be granted this dollar amount, we could theoretically use the 90-10 match, which is significant in federal dollars, to match the second grant, the 50-50. It's a weird layering. We might not have the full amount, but we'll get pretty darn close and have very little either donated investment from the property owners or DDA investment. But it's something that could be a potential that in normal circumstances, you can't double dip on federal grants. But the way that they've created these ARPA funds is they're not truly federal dollars. It's one-time dollars that you can use to match pretty much any project. So that's on the grant side of it. Heather can touch on the local portion.
Yeah, so the grant is capped. The CDBG grant is capped at $1 million. So that's the most we can apply for. The total project estimate from Fishbeck, which is the engineer that gave us the estimate on this, was $1,179,000. So we're going to be above that 10% match on this, just due to the nature of the $1 million cap on that grant. And so what you have in front of you and the drawings that we posted online are that preliminary the preliminary drawings and preliminary ideas that came from the property owners. What we need to vet out, should we be awarded this, is the final engineering. So that'll go through multiple public meetings, multiple discussions with the public, with business owners, to figure out just how that alley will exactly look. There are things in there we'd like to do, either permeable pavers or permeable concrete in areas of that, hoping to lessen the effect on our stormwater. There will be rain gardens in there, public seating areas. And as most of you know, a lot of our buildings are not accessible through the front door. They're not ADA, they have steps. A lot of the back entrances are where you find your accessibility. That alleyway is in serious disrepair and has been for many years. And we do have an alley program for those types of things, but when the building owners got together, they wanted to do more than just resurface an alley, have trucks driving over it again, and have the same problem 5 to 10 years from then. So this idea just kept morphing, and then now with these funds available, like Mitch said, it's just like Legacy Plaza. You know, we have all of these projects on a shelf, all of these ideas from property owners and citizens that we've had for years. So when things match up, we take that project off the shelf, we clean it up, we get it out there, and then we work on finalizing it once we know. And part of this grant is for final engineering and design. So what you see in front of you is conceptual and will be massaged and worked until we get to the right product.
The other point, and I think the question you're referring to, Councilor Winchesky, is more on the property owners and contributions. So the reason it says donated funds by property owners or donated funds is under CDBG rules, we cannot special assess for contribution. So in a normal circumstance, the way an alley improvement works in the city of Ludington, just like in residential areas, everybody signs on, they agree, everybody pays a percentage of the repairs to the alley. We would normally do that in a circumstance like a downtown alley, but federal law prevents us from doing that. And so we have to work out agreements with all those neighboring property owners to sign on to make a contribution. We've already had conversations. I know the mayor has reached out to a number of those property owners, if not all of them, to get on board with the idea of doing it differently than we could.
Well, and I think the other, to echo that, is that there is a lot of private property that abuts that alley. So we're hoping that when they come on board, they are doing that portion as well, that they are fixing up the backs of buildings more. We have several projects in that area that are going to come on board with renovation of buildings. So those property owners have been made aware and given the same drawings that we posted online, so that as we're all planning, we're planning together for the future of that area.
Thanks.
If I may, real quick, I did receive communication from Dr. Reamer, who obviously now has a significant investment in that alley. He had no real comments on the Michaels end, but he also is under ownership of the old bank building. On the preliminary drawings, there showed a little bit of investment or value added on portions of what he considers his property. He did want to make sure that everybody understood that if he decides to build a building there, that public infrastructure probably wouldn't be a good idea. So that, again, is a final tweak type situation that we would work on through final design. But he wanted to make that clear that he's a willing participant, but if he's got plans to put some sort of a building on that property, that we wouldn't want to necessarily put some sort of a rain garden there. So that'll all come through with final design.
And in addition to the alley, the entire parking lot is going to be relooked at as well, correct?
Yeah, one of my goals is to work with Chief Kozel, Superintendent Stickney, the property owners, the DDA. You've got the Chamber of Commerce now is on that other corner. That whole parking lot, I'm sure that most of the people in the room recognize it's kind of a mess, because you've got the old drive-through for the bank, you've got the bank parking lot, you've got the public parking lot. Not all those public parking spots are public, some of them are private. So really trying to take a look at it and putting some true agreements in place to say, here are the spots that are going to be reserved for X businesses so that they have their spots, but also trying to look at egress for businesses and cars.
Any further questions? Again, this is a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing a Michigan Economic Development Corporation Public Gathering Spaces Initiative grant specific to the restoration of the Southwest 100 block of Ludington Avenue's alley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? This motion is carried. Thank you.
And that's all I have, Your Honor, already.
Thank you, Counselor. Moving on to public safety, public utilities, Counselor May.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have one thing to report. Last month, we did not have a Public Safety, Public Utilities Committee meeting, and we do have one scheduled for next Monday here in this chamber at 2 p.m. Second, we do have one action item. Recently, the city manager and representatives of Republic Waste met to discuss possible changes in their new contract, which we would sign coming up this year. I had quite a meeting, and I will let Mr. Foster provide the details of that discussion.
I am happy to. As council's aware, and I think many members of the public know, the city received presentation from GFL Environmental Services, who are a waste and recycling company out of the Traverse City area, Kalkaska, essentially as a potential to see if there are other vendors or service providers in the area that would be interested in coming to Ludington. After that presentation took place, Republic Waste reached out to have just a discussion about where things were at with the city, some issues, concerns, and what were some changes that might potentially, convince council, frankly, to just move on with Republic for an extension of 5 years. It's an allowable item within the existing contract, and obviously it's within their best interest to work with us on any concerns or issues to try to make that happen, to extend for another 5 years. We've been with Republic for a significant amount of time. We are a reliable customer for them, and obviously somebody they don't necessarily want to lose. And so during that meeting, we had a few items that came up for discussion. They are on the letter that is within your packet on page 113. I'll touch on them very briefly. Right now, we are at year or monthly recycling. Under the proposal, we would go back to every other week. So the first and third weeks of the month would be recycling pickup. Yard waste, we would have, essentially, we would keep them for this season at 65 and then move up at 2.5%, like the escalator is in the existing contract. To be honest, I think that's something we could work on. Talking with staff, 66.25 for a bill to try to maintain at the office wouldn't be fun to do that change all the time. So figuring out a way that we can do it is something that I think they're interested in. One that's important, I think, to a lot of residents is when they have concerns and they call the 1-800 number, there aren't a lot of consistent answers. And so Republic was willing and interested in having a local number that residents could call that would go directly to the Manistee office, where they would have all the answers that relate to Ludington and maybe not to, Indianapolis, Indiana. So that's a huge piece. And then the last one was one that I think we talked about during the GFL presentation, which was trying to figure out how do we work with our seasonal as well as our short-term visitors to Ludington. And Republic is more than willing to have a discussion about, those folks that, crosswinds or our seasonal residents where they're up here Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they leave Sunday. What do they do with their waste and recycling when the pickup for them might not be till Wednesday? So we're trying to find an alternative. And if the contract is to be extended, they are willing to work with us on that. There might be some expenses on the city's part, just because there might be some public infrastructure pieces to that, but they are willing to work with us on that. And so, tonight I would ask that council please give staff direction either to work with Republic on extension of the contract, the extra 5 years, or to go out for proposals for a potential new vendor. Doesn't necessarily mean that we would. We could stick with Republic even after an RFP process, but I do want to get that direction as if we were to switch to a new vendor, it would take some time to get them acclimated. We have a lot of homes and users, so to purchase the number of carts would take some period of time for that vendor if it were someone other than Republic. So I hope that was a good introduction.
That's pretty good.
Perfect.
I'd like to point out that one of the major reductions they offered us was they backed off the proposed almost doubling of the yard waste container cost back to pretty much what it is. For most of us, that was $70, $80 a year. So that was nice.
Mhm. I also want to mention that I was walking with a friend today, and she's over the moon about twice a month curbside recycling, and she also talked about the yard waste bins staying at the same price too. And just speaking for Republic, when our last city manager was here, John Shea, he negotiated the contract for 5 years, and then with a 5-year extension on that. So we're talking right now about that 5-year extension. Republic Services, I think, has served our community very well. I haven't heard many complaints. I've been very satisfied with them. And I would think at the rate of inflation and at the cost they're going to give us for the next 5 years, I don't think we can beat it. I would say, let's stay with Republic for the next 5 years.
So I would note that when we did have the presentation from the other gentleman, we asked them, so what is your inflation accelerator? And theirs was, in their most recent contact, 3.5. I did a little quick arithmetic, and everything else being equal, that's another $75,000, $80,000 over the term of the contract. Plus, if we choose to request an RFP, there's no guarantee that we would get the same or a similar offer. So I echo the comments that I would certainly support authorizing extending the current contract.
I'm good with that too.
Same.
I would just like to say that I too am satisfied. If it's not broken, then don't fix it. That's not to say that we always can't work to improve it. But I think we should instruct the staff to start negotiation with Republic Service.
I have no problem.
We're not doing a straw poll, are we?
I was really close to just saying I would love a motion. It would really approach
Would
it.
anyone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to retain our contract with Republic for the next 5 years.
And I'll support that motion.
Motion by Council Winchesky, seconded by Councilor Stibbits, to direct City Manager Foster to extend our contract with Republic Services for another 5 years. Period. I'm reading it. Is that motion worded well enough for you, Councilor Winchesky?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of extending the city contract for garbage and recycling contract with Republic Services signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Mr. Bylett from Republic Services here in the audience, and I thank you for your working behind the scenes to make sure that the city gets the very best that you can possibly offer. Thank you. Councilor May?
That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Cemetery, Parks, and Recreation, Councilor Stibbits?
Excuse
me. Oh, hey, again. Building and licenses, anything to report?
I am pleased to announce I have nothing to report, no action.
We're glad you asked. Yeah.
Cemetery, Parks, and Recreation?
I am also pleased to report that we have no report and no action items. We do have a meeting coming up on Tuesday, April 19th at 3:30 right here in council chambers. And then I believe the building and licensing meeting will be directly following that. Is that correct? Yes.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And that is all.
Thank you. We'll move on to communication from city officials, city councilors. Anything to report? I hear nothing. Move on to the city manager's report.
I will be brief this evening, Your Honor. Just a couple items from my report. We notified the current vendors at Stearns Park Beach that we are going to issue a request for proposals for the future operations of the concessions. The contract was at the end this year, and so we're issuing that RFP here towards the end of the season. We have received communication from a couple of vendors interested in potentially going there. One of the things that I know Assistant City Manager staff is interested in making sure we keep in there is the cleaning of the restrooms. That's a huge thing. I think we all recognize making sure those bathrooms stay clean and frankly open is important for the upcoming year. So we will make sure that is included. We are working between myself, the police chief, and Superintendent Stickney are working with LASD on their Bike to School Day. I'm happy to announce that is May the 4th. And of course, their theme for that day is May the 4th be with you. So please, this is a call to everybody in the audience, everybody watching. Please be safe in general with kids and people out biking. I bike to work today. I bike to work most of the spring, summer, and fall. But please be extra careful, especially around the new elementary school on May the 4th. We're going to have kids from kindergartners all the way to, I think, 5th graders biking from churches in the area over there. So please, please be careful and take your time. I realize everybody has somewhere to go, but that morning you can take your time a little bit more. And then I had a great conversation on Friday with the new city manager up in Manistee. We're going to share some stories back and forth, but also learn a little bit from one another as he has come from the Detroit area. And then the last thing is there is a new grant program out from MDOT called Category B that will allow us to potentially receive funding for a local street, which is not one of our big major streets in the area. And one of the incentives that MDOT puts on there that they prioritize is working with other jurisdictions on a project that they might have around the same area. And so Superintendent Stickney and I had a meeting with the superintendent about potentially doing Gaylord Avenue right next to Oriole Field. I think outside of Water Street, that might be the worst street in the city of Ludington. And so we're working to see if we can put together a pretty good application for that 1,000-foot super block to have a full reconstruction. The school's participation, we're hoping, is we would narrow up that street a little bit, and they'd be able to utilize the western side for actual parking spots for the trucks and trailers and pickups that back in so they can watch football games and soccer games. So we're looking to do that here into the future, but that'll be at a future public safety meeting if we're able to get a solid application together. Unless there are any other questions, that is all I have for you all this evening.
I have one question. You also discussed in your report that you had a brainstorming session with multiple manufacturers. Anything interesting coming out of that session?
No, obviously nothing that I can share publicly that isn't probably covered by some sort of confidentiality or request for confidentiality with me. But what I'll say is several of our manufacturers in town are making large investments in either property or personal property, so equipment, that hopefully will lead to continued success in the area and or new positions. And I think that's the most exciting thing. And frankly, the discussion and the approval of the city brownfield authority early on in this agenda might help those things become reality sooner rather than later because of some of the sites that they'd be looking at for work. So I think the differing priorities between the county and the city on the brownfield are okay. And this is one of those areas where differing priorities can play a role in what the city does. So that is what I can share with you today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question. The FOIA request that was added to the agenda, is that under city manager or mayor?
The mayor.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. First item on the mayor's report is the marijuana discussion. A quick history of how we've arrived at tonight's scheduled agenda discussion of marijuana businesses within the city limits. The statewide ballot results of November 2018's general election saw the approval of sale of adult use marijuana. During the city council meeting of February 11, 2019, council unanimously approved the formation of a marijuana ad hoc committee tasked with presenting the risks and benefits of the sale and use of adult use marijuana. A committee of the whole meeting of council was held at the Ludington Area Center for the Arts on September 16th, 2019 to hear public input on the issue. At council's meeting of September 23rd, 2019, council unanimously accepted the ad hoc committee's report, officially dissolving that committee. On October 28th, 2019, council voted 6-1 to reaffirm Ordinance 393-18, declaring the city's intent to continue to prohibit adult use marijuana establishments in the city of Ludington. Then City Attorney Wilson stated that within the original ordinance, the city would revisit the issue within 60 days of the state's passing of their final rules, which was not scheduled to be completed until December of 2019. Council subsequently agreed to a 2-year wait and see period to appropriately review the statewide risks and benefits. That wait and see timeframe was reworked by COVID as the challenges of a video conference meeting were inadequate for debate and discussion of such a potentially contentious issue. Fast forward to more recent times, the recent release of state tax revenue distribution to municipalities was made public within the past month, and it offered updated information and gave new life to this discussion. Therefore, given the release of the most recent information and the expiration of a self-imposed wait and see period, I find it appropriate to hear each council person's current position regarding the issue and seek direction from council as how to proceed. For your reference, council, preparation for this discussion, updated information from the state and other municipalities were collected and relayed to you last Tuesday. Council, I'll open the floor for discussion. Would anyone care to begin?
I'll begin, Your Honor.
Thank you.
This city council, like a lot of jurisdictions, sometimes is on the cutting edge of issues and other times takes a wait and see attitude. When the council voted on this several years ago, they decided to take a wait and see attitude. While some people may have been distressed by that, I will admit I wasn't on the council then. I was distressed by it. But in reality, I think it was the right move to make. Because we have had an opportunity to sit back and see how other jurisdictions have handled this. We've been able to sit back and see how the state has worked its regulations and things like that. We've been able to garner much more information from jurisdictions that have adopted it. And I think the time is right for us to look at this thing again. In doing a little bit of research on this, I now see that Northern Michigan University has a certificate program in several different areas regarding the cannabis business. Whether you're going to be a grower, whether you're going to be an attorney working on these issues, whether or not you're going to be a business owner, and whether or not a course on doing testing and things like that. When one of our major universities decides to do a certification program to prepare people to be professional in the fields, I think that says something about this. It is a major business in the state. While the initial projections for how much it would bring in may not have met their expectation, but it is now $1 billion business. Not only is it $1 billion business, it is the most regulated business that the state or the country has. They monitor this product, as they say, from seed to flower. They track it every step of the way. I think it's time that we move forward. It's not a quick process. We just can't vote on it and then all of a sudden we're going to have provisioning or grow businesses or whatever it is we decide to license. It'll take time to come up with the right type of ordinances. And again, learning from other jurisdictions who've tried lotteries on their licenses and have been sued, or whatnot in the process. My view is we have the chance to do this thing right, to make it beneficial for the city. And I would welcome the opportunity to help make that happen.
Counselor May?
Yeah, let's proceed right in line here.
Why not?
I've listened to a lot and read a lot, and my opinion still hasn't changed. Considering it's absolutely no inconvenience to anybody in town to drive 5 minutes to get your marijuana. To me, that's not an issue. Enabling them to shorten their drive, I don't think is that large an item. It comes down to me, it's simply the matter of the income for the city versus the benefits to the city commercially and personally. And to me, I think it'd be very beneficial to be a town that finally stood up and said, no, we're not going to follow in. I think considering our recreational and tourist business here, that it'd be a boon for people to say, let's go to Ludington. It's not like everywhere else, like some people have mentioned tonight. It's a lousy joke in a sense, but I thought of today while I was sitting here that it'd be nice to see a t-shirt downtown that said, Ludington on Lake Michigan, shark-free, salt-free, weed-free. It would actually sell. So to me, I'm still in favor of prohibiting it and not going with it. Plus, I think 2 years that we've had towns involved in it is still too short a trial period, that we still haven't seen the large-scale ramifications that like Colorado's seen that'll come. Again, if you can drive 5 minutes to buy a car or 15 minutes to buy a side of beef, or go down to Muskegon to get some fancy dental work done, I think it'd be neat if Ludington said, no, let's just stay away from it.
Counselor Winchusky? Thank you, Counselor Ray.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who came tonight. And two things, there's two sides to this issue, very emotional issue. I appreciate the way that people were very respectful to everyone who spoke, and I really appreciate that. It's good to hear both sides of the issue, even if you totally disagree. I think morsels get put into your brain to understand where other people are coming from. So I just want to tell you I'm really grateful for your respect for everything tonight. I guess just a couple of things. This law has been in place in Michigan for 4 years. And in those 4 years, the state of Michigan has done 8 revisions to this law. The law is 13 pages, and it's very not lawyery. It was drawn up by citizens and individuals. So now it's in the court system so that the legality systems of that whole law can be worked out. There are multiple, I don't know exactly how many, but I would say probably between 50 and 100 lawsuits going on in the state of Michigan right now to kind of clarify the language of the law. So it seems like there's a lot of work and time that still has to be put forward to clarify this law. So I'm not sure we're done with the let's see exactly what happens stage yet. My real heart and soul on this issue comes from my experience of being a teacher. And I have to tell you that it is not worth the money to lose one child a year to what happens to this situation. I know, I was a high school teacher, and I know kids can get marijuana if they want marijuana. So from my experience, about 20% of the kids in the high school are going to say no. And I taught juniors and seniors, so the older kids. About 20% have goals in life. They know what college they want to go to. They know what career they want to take, and they're on a straight path, and nothing's going to knock them off that. There's another 20% that are lost. Those are the kids that do find the marijuana, the harder drugs, alcohol, and they have issues. And those are the 20% that really need assistance, need help. But let's look at the 60%. The 60% of kids that are left, they're riding the fence. They're trying to figure out who they are, where they belong, what they want to do with their life. They're trying to break away from their parents a little bit to be independent. But as parents, we know they're not ready at 16 to break away yet. So we're still trying to hold them on and lead them. And Sam, your example to your kids was wonderful, because I think that's exactly where we are. I've seen parents fall apart, families fall apart, because kids start smoking pot and then they go to harder substances. And I've seen it many times, not all the time, but many times that can happen. And so the parents are trying to save their children. They're trying to save their children's dreams, their futures, and their aspirations, but they're going down the tubes. And so I agree with Counselor May. Let's be the community that says no. Let's say no to that. And if people need it, I realize as we get older, we have aches and pains, and we need relief from pain from some diseases, cancer and other things. I realize that too. And if people need the marijuana, if some of the other communities close to us are hopping in, it's not too much trouble for people who need it to go there. So my opinion at this point would be to remain opted out.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson?
Yeah, this definitely is a tough issue. A couple of years ago, I voted to opt out. I felt there were too many unknowns. Things have changed, but as Pastor Nelson commented, you know, it is a gateway drug to more powerful drugs. And until I see some data that shows one side or the other, you know, in a positive way, I would have to say that I still feel like I have to opt out. I don't have a problem with medical marijuana. If you need it for pain, it's there. But I just don't know why we need the recreational marijuana. And I owned a party store about 10 years ago, and I had a young man that worked for me, super nice kid. He started drinking alcohol as soon as he could, like most kids. And then he got on marijuana, and I tried very hard to try to make him go straight. And he always acted like he wanted to. But he ended up, after being brought back after one overdose, the second one, he didn't make it. And he passed away. And I think about that kid every day. And especially when an issue like this comes up, for his sake, and for maybe hopefully a lot of other children, I have to stay opted out on this.
Thank you. Counselor Stibbits?
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for coming and sharing your opinions. Just like Counselor Winchesky had said, this is a very touchy subject for a lot of you, and some of you have shared some very intimate stories with us. And it's really hard to get up there in front of everyone and say those things. And so I think everyone has been very respectful, and that's very nice that as a public that we can gather together on this really touchy subject and kind of hear other people's opinions. And so for all of that, I thank all of you for doing that respectfully. A lot has changed since we have talked about the marijuana discussion and opting in or opting out. And I think that I kind of have to side a little bit with Mr. Terzano down there, because I'm looking at some of the buildings that have been revitalized because of marijuana dispensaries, that I think we have a lot of dilapidated buildings and areas in our neighborhoods or in our not neighborhoods, but in our like business districts that I think need help. And if it's going to bring some jobs to our community, we might want to welcome that. I would be willing to look at creating an ordinance to have dispensaries in the area with massive amounts of regulations. I would really like to consider bringing them here, but I would also like to have very strong opinions about where they're located and how many are in the area, and where these places are located and how advertising is presented for our city so that students alike are not being exposed directly to the advertising purposes. So I think that I would side with the side of bringing dispensaries to our area within reasons.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Kane?
I also thank the audience for coming and sharing your thoughts on marijuana. For me, it's important for me that the residents of Michigan voted to legalize recreational marijuana in 2018. The residents of the city of Ludington voted to legalize recreational marijuana. And the residents of the Fifth Ward voted to legalize recreational marijuana. So that's very important to me, is that this is what the public voted for. This is what the public wants. For me, the stigma of marijuana is gone. I think the survey that the mayor put out from the 6 different jurisdictions was very informative, and specifically that there was no specific increase in crime. There was no documented or anecdotal doses of mental or physical impacts, and there was no documented reports of impacts on use. This was the majority. I think all of the municipalities said this. And then be aware that as a city, we can regulate very, very strongly where these pot shops go up. So we can choose not to have 2 right next to each other. We can choose to where they are located within our city. So I believe it's time that we just move on and adopt and basically accept it. And I believe we should opt into the marijuana, recreational marijuana.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Bulger?
An arcane historical note. I feel like that last senator voting on Andrew Johnson's impeachment.
And how did that go?
I think you just out-referenced most of the people in this room.
So I'm inclined to say that this topic deserves more consideration than an instant straw poll here at the meeting tonight. I'm leaning in a direction as Councilor Terzano and the others saying that we need to take a serious look at it. However, I would also agree with Councilor Stibbits. We could look at this. There may be an ordinance presented that wouldn't have adequate controls. And if that's the case, I wouldn't hesitate to vote against it. But I think we need to do more homework and not just summarily say no tonight.
Thank you. Council, we need some direction here as far as how we will or will not move forward. Anyone care to put together a motion?
I'll put together a motion that I assume that this would this need to go to the planning commission or can building and license just address it?
So the way that many municipalities throughout the state have addressed this, when they address the regulation of marijuana, both medical and recreational, and they want to do it in a comprehensive fashion, they do both a police power ordinance and a zoning ordinance. So for the zoning piece, for sure, you would want to go through the planning commission, make sure the planning commissioners are completely up to speed and are understanding, that their input is taken into account in the process. We've advised several communities that a lot of times an ad hoc committee, I know you all had one for that initial decision on whether or not to opt in or out. An ad hoc committee can borrow people from, both this body. You can also have folks who are also on the planning commission who are part of that discussion. You can invite the public to have those discussions and have basically a concerted effort that does not involve every single city council meeting to plan and develop the scope of the ordinance and what it's going to affect, but is developed by a smaller committee and brought back to normal committee processes, either through building and licenses or planning commission or both, depending on what the community sense is and how council wants to proceed with the type and scale of the regulation that you're interested in adopting. So that would all, that discussion would, flesh out some of that direction. But yes, I think you could certainly have some of it come through building and licenses, but, I would recommend almost a specific, obviously given the interest here tonight, a specifically designated committee. Folks would be able to, sign up for alerts to attend committee meetings or whatever, that allows that broader community-wide discussion in the context, though, of trying to help steer and guide and get an appropriate scale to the regulations so that, as Councilor Stibbits said, I think, you can be open to it, but within reason, right? So how do you, what's a well-regulated marijuana ordinance? There would be a lengthy process to get there, and I would suggest potentially an ad hoc committee or, some designating certain committees to have specific meetings for this purpose.
If I may ask, if we do move forward with an ad hoc committee, is that then appointed by the mayor or?
Well, generally, this body could appoint a committee and could appoint the members. So a member of the council now could make a motion to create an ad hoc committee and staff it with X, Y, and Z council members. And that motion could pass or fail, and you all would be then created into that ad hoc committee, and you can set your meeting dates as appropriate.
But I would also want to include folks from the planning commission on that committee. So if I may, Your Honor, I'll make a motion to establish an ad hoc committee to develop an ordinance to allow recreational and medical marijuana in the city. And maybe come back now I'm struggling here, but maybe come back at the next council meeting with a recommended committee members after having a discussion with the planning commission and fellow councilors in terms of who may have an interest in serving.
Such as not only already sitting officials, but also community people too?
No.
Just, it only be?
The community can come in when the ad hoc committee has meetings and do presentations, but this is developing an ordinance for the city, so it has to be city officials.
So let me see if I can funnel that down.
To what makes sense?
We have a motion I don't have a second for this, but I think what you want to put forward in motion is establish an ad hoc committee to develop an ordinance to allow adult use and medical marijuana businesses within the city of Ludington.
Correct.
With membership of the committee to be determined at the next council meeting.
And I'll support that
Is
motion.
putting words in Councilor Trezano's mouth.
Very good.
In the charter already requires that council establish all committees, all new committees by ordinance. So what staff can do is we will craft that ordinance with Attorney Hammersley to create this ad hoc committee. Obviously, we don't want to have a quorum of the sitting members of council on that, nor a quorum of the planning commissioners. So we will try to craft something that doesn't end up in a 3-3 tie ever. So probably an odd number with a majority council, and then work from there on that.
Right.
Yep.
And if there's concern, we could also just take this direction now, not necessarily vote on the motion, come back with an ordinance at the next meeting that does create the ad hoc, if you'd rather not vote now to create something that you're not going to formally adopt until that next motion.
So the ordinance that you're talking about would just be to establish the ad hoc committee, not to put together any sort of details that go in place to establishing the facilities.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, likely that first meeting of that committee would be, Attorney Hammersley would have, I'm guessing, a model ordinance, police power and zoning that would be brought forth and build from something along those lines.
Yeah, this is just procedural now. The substantive things relating to any facilities, any uses authorized, attendant effects, all that sort of stuff would be at a later date.
So what do we do?
He's
Got three things here, and I want to make sure I meld them into what we're talking about here. We're seeking a motion to approve an ordinance to establish an ad hoc committee to be specific for me, will you?
I would like to change it a little bit. That my motion is to direct staff
To create,
to
draft an ordinance.
to direct staff to draft an ordinance to create an ad hoc committee for the establishment of adult use and medical marijuana in the city of Ludington.
Medical or recreation?
Adult use and medical. Adult use means recreation.
Okay.
And since I seconded the other motion, I will second this motion and approve those changes.
It's always nice to have an attorney advise an attorney.
Some people think so.
Does the other attorney have a comment?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
We have a motion by Counselor Terzano, seconded by Counselor Stibbits, to direct city staff to draft an ordinance for the purposes of creating an ad hoc committee, develop an ordinance allowing adult use and medical marijuana businesses within the city of Ludington. There you go.
That's very good.
Any further discussion?
I just have a quick comment to make, and I have to make this just for my own sake commenting here. If we do vote to establish this committee, it is very important that we let the committee do their job and not bring it back to council and then council does this and just let the committee do their work and formalize it. And then when it's ready, it will come to council, and then council can then decide at that time, do we like this? Do we not? What changes would we like to make, and bring it back to committee? That if we're voting to have a committee, then the committee needs to be able to do their job.
I won't repeat the ordinance, but I think we all know where we're headed here. And again, as this is a divisive issue, Madam Clerk, I'll ask for a roll call.
Yes, Counselor Stibbits,
Yes.
Counselor Winchesky,
No.
Counselor Bolger,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
No.
Counselor Terzano,
Aye.
Counselor Kane,
Aye.
Counselor May,
No.
4 ayes, 3 nays.
This motion is carried. Thank you, everyone, for your input tonight. your guidance to council here, and thank you, councilors, for attacking this issue again. Looking forward to having a resolution as soon as it's fully prepared to come to council. Council, on page 125 of your packet, you'll find a letter of support of the Lake Michigan Car Ferry, Inc.'s 2022 MARAD American Marine Highway Grant application. I seek approval of this letter of support.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Motion by Counselor Stibbits, second by Counselor Bulger, to approve the letter of support of the Lake Michigan Car Ferry, Inc.'s 2022 MARAD American Marine Highway Grant application. Council, do we have any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion is carried. Council, last year at this time, I had the unenviable task, but humbling and proud to make a request for an adoption of a proclamation in support of a childhood cancer campaign. Last year at this time, Will Flewelling was still alive. He was a student at Ludington High School and did a lot in his last few years, months, and days before his death to help contribute to this good cause. Our good friend Thomas Debsky has spearheaded this campaign for a long time, and I'm proud to make that same proclamation this year in support of the 2022 Childhood Cancer Campaign Lemonade Stands. Whereas at times a community must come together to support those battling a serious illness, and whereas the Ludington City Council recognizes and supports the work of Childhood Cancer Campaign in helping families and children during a cancer crisis, and whereas the Lemonade Stand fundraiser is one way the Childhood Cancer Campaign engages the community to help raise funds for this effort, and whereas the City of Ludington recognizes the importance of community engagement in raising awareness and funding for the mission of childhood cancer campaigns, now therefore let it be proclaimed the City of Ludington Council and the citizens of Ludington do recognize and support the facilitation of lemonade stands on June 4th, 2022 throughout the City of Ludington and in all districts. Be it further proclaimed that June 4th, 2022 be established as Childhood Cancer Awareness Day in the City of Ludington, and that the Childhood Cancer Campaign be afforded all of the consideration and gratitude worthy of such an honor. Dated 11 April 2022, signed by me, Steve Miller, Mayor of the City of Ludington. Thank you, Council. I ask your approval in support of the proclamation supporting the 2022 Childhood Cancer Campaign Lemonade Stands as proclaimed.
Move to approve.
I'll support.
Motion by Counselor Johnson, seconded by Counselor Stibbits to approve a proclamation in support of the 2022 Childhood Cancer Campaign Lemonade Stands as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Council, we are requested to proceed with an action to approve the permit requested by the Ludington Daily News to produce and manage their annual Western Michigan Boat and RV Show at Ludington Municipal Marina on August 25th through August 28th inclusive. I'll open the floor for discussion prior to seeking a motion. This is an annual event that has been
Well, I see one thing, Your Honor. It's at Rotary Park instead of.
It is at Rotary Park this year.
Is there enough room?
Yes, yep. So the plan, in the last few years, the location of our boat and RV show down at the marina has really just been it's been difficult to maintain for the marina patrons at the municipal marina, and it's really caused a headache for Crown and Cork and the restaurants, some of the folks that live down in that area. And so we were able to work it out with the Ludington Daily News that Rotary Park, because of all the space they have there on Lewis, that doesn't abut any residents right there, as well as that first block of Gaylord on the east side, is just about the same amount of space that they currently utilize, just based on the smaller amount of supply that they're going to be having, just because of supply chain issues with boats and RVs.
So it's not going to be on Court Street at all?
I don't believe we've allowed for it for this year. No, but if they come back and all of a sudden they've got an increase in supply in future years, that would be a change to that request.
Just seems like there were so many RVs down there last year that it just doesn't seem like it's going to fit there. But
Yeah, that's the Gaylord Gaylord Avenue section is fairly large. It's a full block for essentially what would be 2 lanes if we just use the northbound section, and they'll be able to fit all of their equipment there, is what they believe.
Councilors, do I have a motion to approve this permit requested by the Ludington Daily News?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Terzano, seconded by Councilor Nemay, to approve the permit requested by the Ludington Daily News to produce and manage their annual Western Michigan Boat and RV Show at Rotary Park, August 25th through the 28th inclusive, as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Tonight's agenda was amended to include a requested action on the city's Freedom of Information Act. Our attorney's denial of a release of information request pursuant to MCL 12.243, citing attorney-client privilege. City Attorney Hammersley, in the absence of the city's FOIA attorney, will respond to council's concerns and questions. Floor is open for concerns and questions.
Would you like me to take the podium as
Certainly.
Attorney Alvarado normally does in this situation?
Thank you.
It might just be helpful to allow Attorney Hammersley to just do a brief overview on it. I know Councilor Stibbits made that comment earlier, so we can do this real quick and then allow for questions at that point.
Thank you. Yes, as the mayor indicated, I'm obviously not Carlos Alvarado, so I will read briefly from Mr. Alvarado's memorandum to you all, which obviously you all should have as a laydown. I will try to tighten it up though a little bit, obviously not just reading it to you like a bedtime story. So on March 1st, 2022, Ludington resident Tom Rado, the appellant, emailed FOIA request LPD number 431 to the city manager, requesting, quote, the written legal opinion that the city attorney shared with the council last night, which was, February 28th, 2022. The email goes on to say, additionally, could you provide all written documents from February 2022 that led to the genesis of this opinion, such as, but not limited to, correspondence between city staff and the attorney requesting the opinion, statutes and precedents used to form the opinion, memoranda asking what should be addressed in the opinion. Mr. Rado received an out-of-office reply to his initial email. So on March 3rd, 2022, Mr. Rado resent his FOIA request to the city, this time addressing the message to Ms. Steckel, assistant to the city manager, who confirmed receipt of the email to Mr. Rado and forwarded same to both Mr. Alvarado and myself. On March 11th, Mr. Alvarado issued a 10-day notice of extension as authorized under section 5.2D of the FOIA statute. On March 26th, Mr. Alvarado submitted FOIA response 431, denying in part and granting in part the request. The request was granted as to all documents except any documents that relate to the attorney-client privilege under, again, section 243(1)G of the FOIA statute. The appellant, Mr. Rado, filed an appeal, or sent an email stating that I hope you can introduce this as a FOIA appeal at today's meeting so that it can be adjudicated at the next meeting. And this current meeting is the meeting that the next meeting is referred to in his email. The only document that was withheld from disclosure from the initial response to the appellant was the attorney-client privilege memorandum addressed to the members of the Ludington City Council and prepared and sent to all those council members directly by me, City Attorney Ross Hammersley of Olson, Bisdock, and Howard, dated February 25, 2022. In the email transmitting his appeal, the appellant states that my more specific legal rationale will be forthcoming to the council well before that April 11th meeting. However, as referenced above, no such legal rationale has been received as of the date of this memorandum, April 11th. The appellant does not suggest in his email that he believes he's entitled to review, the appellant does suggest in his email that he believes he's entitled to review what he describes as, quote, the leftovers from the requested attorney-client privilege memorandum after the city staff have edited out strictly legal advice. The appellant also alleges not receiving any indication that the City of Ludington as a client ever formally sought this memorandum through written solicitation by any city official. Mr. Alvarado states that the scope of the appeal in the FOIA request, that it is not the role of the FOIA coordinator to address the origin of the memorandum or whether there was someone from the city who specifically requested the legal opinion in writing. Such a request is beyond the scope of the FOIA statute. The attorney-client privilege is a principle entrenched in common law and first stated in the laws of evidence in the 16th century in a classic formulation by John Wigmore. And I'll forego the citation, but essentially the quote is from the Restatement of Law Governing Lawyers that the attorney-client privilege may be invoked with respect to 1, a communication, 2, made by a privileged person, 3, in confidence, 4, for the purpose of obtaining or providing legal assistance for the client. More contemporaneously, the Michigan Court of Appeals considered the scope of the attorney-client privilege in the case Reed Dairy Farm versus Consumer Power Co. And that site, for anybody watching at home, is 227 Mishap 614. And that case held that the attorney-client privilege attaches to direct communication between a client and his attorney, as well as communications made through their respective agents. The scope of the attorney-client privilege is narrow, attaching only to confidential communications by the client to his advisor that are made for the purpose of obtaining legal advice. Where an attorney's client is an organization, the privilege extends to those communications between attorneys and all agents or employees of the organization authorized to speak on his behalf in relation to the subject matter of the communication. There is no question by the appellant that the numerous documents disclosed through his FOIA request about the imminency of the lawsuit against the city, to the extent that on March 25th, a lawsuit was filed against the city. Therefore, obviously, the memorandum regarding the legal claims for that lawsuit are privileged and subject to the attorney-client privilege for communications between the city attorney and his client, the City of Ludington. Mr. Alvarado writes, the appellant misconstrues the nature of the client-attorney relationship established between the city and the city attorney. Upon his appointment, the attorney became the city's legal counsel. Thus, it is not required that every time a legal issue arises, the city must specifically request a legal opinion in writing. The relationship between attorney and client is dynamic based on the assumption that the function of the city attorney is to provide legal advice. Indeed, pursuant to section 10.5 of the Ludington City Code, the city attorney shall be the legal advisor for the city and for all officers in service of the city as to matters pertaining to city affairs. Based on the above, it is the opinion of the FOIA coordinator that the appeal to the FOIA request 431 be rejected as the city correctly invoked the attorney-client privilege. Now, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have about Mr. Alvarado's memo or any of the facts and circumstances related to the appeal.
In the memo, the denial is checked on the first page, but on the last page over Mr. Alvarado's signature, the box is checked granted in part, denied in part. Were there some items that actually were produced?
Yes, all of the electronic communications that were requested by the appellant were provided. The only document that was I believe the only document that was withheld is this legal memorandum And there may have been, I believe there were portions of emails that did include legal advice that may have been redacted. So I can't say that all documents were produced unredacted, but I think the number of redacted emails was maybe 2 out of, I think, probably over 30.
So I would move that the council support the recommendation of our FOIA council and deny the request for additional information because it is within the attorney-client privilege.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Bulger, seconded by Counselor May to support the recommendation of the city's FOIA attorney and deny the request for additional information covered by attorney-client privilege. I need to be more specific than that. Council, do we have any more questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. Was the city late in responding?
Not to this FOIA request. And I've not reviewed the timeline of any other FOIA requests, but the timeline of this request is that when Mr. Rada first sent his initial email, he received an out-of-office email. That email was officially not received by the city until he sent his second email, which was the 3rd. The statute then basically requires, and I've got a footnote, or there's a footnote in the memo here that states that under section 15.235 sub 1, when the city receives a written electronic email, it's not deemed to have been received by the statute until the next day. So the actual date that the FOIA was deemed to have been received by the city was March 4th. And then each of the timelines that are stated in the memo follow on from that. And so the March 11, 2022 was when Mr. Alvarado issued the 10-day notice. That was 5 business days after the receipt, and the subsequent fulfillment was as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Anyone unclear of what we're voting on here? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council. Before we move on to public comment, there is one more thing, and while I have an audience like I've had on the radio or with the newspaper, city elections are coming up for the mayor's position, city clerk's position, wards 2, 4, and 6. Petitions are due by the 19th. Madam Clerk, I want to make sure I'm correct here. Petitions due by the 19th at 4 p.m. at the city clerk's office, in the city clerk's hands. We'll move on to public comment. Anyone wishing to address council, please step to the lectern and proceed after stating your name and address.
Hi, I'm
Rules apply as they had earlier. I'll open the floor for public comment. Who wants to go first?
Annette Quillen, 606 East Court, Ludington, Michigan. I wasn't going to say anything, but everybody talked about the wayward children and marijuana being a gateway to other drugs. I don't know. I don't particularly imbibe in that kind of stuff, but I do know that this area lacks something for teenagers. If you're not a jock and into sports, or if you're not an honor student, where do these kids go and do? They're lost. What is the community going to do for our children? You know, Alice Cooper, he's from Michigan. He's a rock star. Look under his name, Alice Cooper, The Rock, Phoenix, Arizona. It's a youth center that he started. He was a drug user. He was an alcoholic, son of a minister. So, you know, everybody falls apart once in a while, but we need some place for these children, some constructive activity. And while maybe you can get Heather to look into some grants that's free and tuck in a senior center.
Mike Shaw, 302 North Lavinia. I second what she said. To say that, first of all, I want to thank Councilor May, Councilor Winchesky, and Councilor Johnson. Thank you for the sake of the kids, the families in our community. To say that I'm disappointed is an understatement. And it's too bad. And I think you made a wrong decision, but now we're going to have to live with it. So again, thank you for those that I believe did the right thing. So thank you.
Jason Adams, 608 West Ludington. Something that wasn't mentioned tonight that the city council should be aware of as the public. In provision, Prop 1, there was a provision in there. If a city decides to opt out of the marijuana ordinances, or which they did, or the dispensaries, a citizen can draw up a ballot initiative, an ordinance essentially of their own wording, collect signatures, and the city is forced to put it on the next ballot. And it should probably be known that if the city decides to vote no on this again, or if they drag their feet well into the middle of the summer, a citizen will be writing a ballot initiative and it will become an ordinance, and provided it gets the support votes it needs on the next ballot. And essentially the city council will lose most of its control over writing that ordinance. So they should be made well aware of that. It wasn't mentioned tonight. On a lighter note, there's been some ruffling of feathers around town about residents having chickens in their yards. And I know a few of these people, and these are their pets. They have 4 hens in their yard, and they're not roosters. They don't make noise. They're really not seen by anyone. It's in a fenced-in yard. It seems ridiculous that this is who we're making a target out of. The way I read the ordinance says you can't have livestock. I would argue that there's baby chicks being sold at Tractor Supply to kids for Easter. I don't really think that's livestock. It seems the council could take a reasonable look at this and set a limit, say there should only be hens allowed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But a pygmy goat can be a pet. A ball python can be a pet. 2 or 3 chickens can certainly be a pet, especially if they're not making any noise or whatever. So I think we should be reasonable about this and try to accommodate people that really aren't causing any problems. Thank you.
Larry Ames, 708 Diana Street. I don't want anyone to miss the point that a dispensary is not an equivalent to what I would refer to as a baby boomer's pharmacy. Yes, I agree, the children, et cetera. Raising a child nowadays isn't easy. It's probably not going to get any easier as we move into the future. But really, what's that got to do with having a dispensary? I noticed the pastors didn't mention the original gateway drug, alcohol, and we've got plenty of those stores in town. And the city council, in a hypocritical fashion, supports beer and wine events in town, allows them to happen. And respectfully to Commissioner Johnson, you said yourself your employee started with alcohol, and somehow marijuana was linked to his overdose, but not alcohol. You made a business from it. Why can't somebody else? Mr. May, where can you go in 5 minutes and find weed? I want to know so I can go there. It's a lot further to Scottville than 5 minutes. And for an octogenarian or a septuagenarian that needs his meds, that needs his gummies, you're going to put him on US 10 to Scottville in the middle of winter? You have the same kind of tragic results as Mr. McDougal's son. So really, it's all kind of perspective here, isn't it? Isn't it perspective? And some of your perspective is pretty darn narrow. You're still stuck in the 50s and 60s, I'm afraid. I was kind of shocked at some of the testimony I heard from over the opposition. I felt like I was in the movie Footloose for a minute. I hope you do the right thing, and that is to pass an ordinance to allow legal businesses to come in here, to provide our seniors and the people who are suffering from cancer with a convenient place to fulfill their medical needs. My brother died from prostate cancer. He lived in Dallas, Texas. He had to have friends from Denver mail him gummies so that he could feel somewhat normal and have an appetite. Really? You want our citizens to go through that? Isn't that a little narrow-minded? Aren't you looking out for everyone? Think about it. Rethink about it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jacob Muzzo. I live at 6891 Jackson Road. There's been some really great points brought up on both sides. I'd like to thank the city council. I'd like to especially thank the members that have represented those who have voted overwhelmingly in favor of having dispensaries. One thing I'd like to touch on was that there has been a big moral panic about thinking of the kids and what we're going to do for the kids. I guess my answer to that is that if you don't want your kids to participate or be around weed, then tell them that. You know, it's kind of up to you guys as parents to use it as a teaching moment rather than not. And furthermore, for the city council members and anyone else in the room that thinks that you can just go to another town and get your medicine, put yourself in the shoes of a disabled person who can't drive. There is no dial-a-ride to Manistee. There is no dial-a-ride to Baldwin. And that's something else I'd like to see the city council address. I had a friend who got a DUI. He made a mistake, okay? He paid his price. He went to jail. He paid his fines. He could not live here out in Hamlin anymore because there was no dial-a-ride service. So it's not as easy as just going and driving to the next town for some of us. Thanks.
Brian Ford, Living Word Church here in Ludington. I think what's not being discussed is medical marijuana is available anywhere where there's pharmacy. We're not talking about if you're have a prescription from your doctor having to drive to Manistee. You can get medical marijuana through pharmacies. Also, I would like to point out that there are things more important in life than money. Your health is more important than money. Your mental health is more important than money. I hope family is more important than money. Certainly, one's eternal soul is more important than money. And I would like to request the council to consider not to sell the soul of this county or this city, excuse me, for the sake of money. Thank you.
Mark Hunter, 923 Gaylord. There's been a lot of good discussion, a lot of good comments on this situation. I think the CDC is still calling marijuana a legalized drug, and it is very used quite a bit. There's like over 48 million people that do use it. The American Lung Association has come out against smoking marijuana because of the side effects and the things that it's caused them. And my dad actually died of lung cancer. So I'm kind of very, when I see that, I really focus in on that. But I think we just have to look and see, is it going to be a benefit to have this dispensary for our families, or is it not? Is it going to be a benefit for our kids or our grandkids, or is it not? And I firmly believe it's not going to be a benefit. So I hope you just consider that, and thank you.
Ron Sobraski, Pure Marquette Township. I wasn't going to get up and say anything because you've heard it all before. I only going to say two simple things: regulate and control. Right now, I'm sorry, but we're out of control, and you have the power to regulate and control. I hope you remember that.
Evan Horahan, 109 North Washington. The first thing I want to say is to the father who lost
Excuse
his-
me, all comments please directed to this
Apologies,
chair.
apologies. To the father who lost a son, condolences. To the son who lost his father, my condolences. Nobody should have to go through that kind of heartbreak, and my heart really goes out to both of you. One thing that I just want to reiterate is that we were talking about adult use marijuana. We're not talking about kids in a candy store. We have many things that need to be locked away from kids, protected firearms. We have motor vehicles that are dangerous. We have alcohol that's dangerous. These are all things that are part of this world that we have to regulate, control, and be reasonable about. So I would just like to thank the council for their thoughts and everybody for sharing their thoughts tonight. And once again, urge that we pass this ordinance to allow recreational and medical dispensaries within the city of Ludington. Thank you.
Craig Nelson, 6665 Timber Lane. I too am disappointed with the results of the council tonight. I have to be very strong with Pastor Ford with what he had to say. I believe the decision that you've started towards tonight will have some deep and definite repercussions in the years ahead. There will not be any crime wave that will come overnight, but a decision to get started in this pathway will inevitably continue on. And I believe you've taken the first step to do that. So again, I am sorry that you took the decision that you did. I applaud those of you who voted differently, but thank you for your attention.
Wow. Gordon McDougall, Henry's dad. All I can say is, wow, I really don't have a lot to say right now. Very disappointed, but thank you, Councilors Johnson, Winchesky, and May. Kathy, I really appreciate you as a teacher and how you feel towards your students and their families. I just wish all other teachers were that way as well.
Hi there. I'm Holly Benando, and I live at 1016 North Sherman. I bring a little different aspect to this as I'm a mom. My children go to Ludington High School. My daughter graduated from Ludington High School. I've been an environmental consultant in Ludington. I've actually talked and worked with many of you over the years in all kinds of different aspects. My whole job is to regulate and control, has been in the past for environmental, continues that. But I've also started with my owner of my company and 2 other people. And we have actually 3 licenses with medical and adult use, both for cultivation and already for processing. And we are actively running, not in Ludington, but in another city because you guys wouldn't give us the license. We are ready to go into that next step, and we will be going to that next step of vertical integration. And we'll be adding into that a provisioning center. Everyone keeps calling it dispensaries, but it's actually a provisioning center. We want to bring that to Ludington. I'm a mom here. I'm a citizen here for over 20 years. My husband's family, they've been in business in Ludington for over 50 years. Major restaurants, that's what they've been in. We're part of Ludington. This isn't other people coming here. The other people I'm involved with, they've also lived in Ludington. And the other two people that are part owners in our company currently are from Hart. So it's people from this area that want to keep here. We don't want to have to keep driving down to another county, to another area. And that's what I do every day because I live in Ludington, but I'm not allowed to work in Ludington. I think that we have a place. My job, I have many jobs, I wear many hats, but one of my jobs is compliance. I make sure that our company on the medical use side, on the recreational use side, which is also called adult use, and under the processing, that we follow all regulations to the T, that we have all documents done at all times, ready for inspection by anybody that happens to show up, MRA, local, anybody, fire marshal, everybody. This is the people around here that want this. If it's properly regulated, we can do this as a city. I've done it. I spent the last 3 years of my life understanding these regulations, following these regulations, making sure our company follows all of them and has it all. I think that we have a lot of information here and people don't realize that the people in Ludington already are doing this. You guys just don't let us do it on the soil here. We would be, I'm sure, first in line to get that. And we already have behind us years of being able to prove that we know how to follow the regulations that have been put forth by the MRA, and we would continue to do that in the city of Ludington. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address council? As a note, council may have
Again, a cannabis-free comment. Thanks for putting my FOIA appeal on the agenda. I'm glad I was prepared for it. Tonight, city councilors approved the authorizing resolution for the MEDC grant before any public hearing was held and without the public at large having any access to the grant application, which appears to be far from complete. In doing this, they effectively certified that the city has published a posted notice or public notice in such manner to afford affected citizens an opportunity to examine and submit comments on the proposed application, and that citizens have been provided reasonable access to the proposed application and related information. Those are rules established by the MEDC. Yet, the notice posted on the April 8th for public hearing on this application does not allow the public, nor the councilors for that matter, to review the application as required by the MEDC rules. The city's notice is insufficient on many grounds. Beyond that, the existing notice only allows us to look at conceptual plans on the website and gives no contact information for those with questions. I asked for a copy of the application earlier today and found much of it was not available, including required attachments showing detailed project budgets and third-party cost estimates. MEDC rules say such applications must be made available for examination by the public in the 5 days between the posting of the notice and when the actual hearing is held. The officials of the city should not need to be constantly reminded that laws and rules are meant for them too, whether it be for when they look for free money from the state, when they look to hold discussions of public policy in closed session, when they fail to timely respond to FOIA requests, when they fail to timely take up FOIA appeals, or when they decide to hire career felons to serve as trusted firefighters or allow their school resource officer to commit perjury on legal documents without repercussions. This representation is of lawlessness, not of the good people of Ludington. Thank you.
Any further public comment? I see none. I want to note that at the beginning of the second public comment, traditionally held at 2 minutes, I established at the beginning we would continue with what we established earlier in the first one. So if anybody's keeping time at home, some of these comments lasted 3 minutes, and that was my discretion. I'll close public comment and address the next agenda item, which is a closed session. Due to the potential impact on the legal strategies of the city as to 2 pending cases currently under litigation pursuant to Section 8. Please hold till I'm done. Thank you. Pursuant to Section 8E and H of the Open Meetings Act, I ask for a motion to adjourn for the purpose of moving into closed session to consult with legal counsel, limiting discussion to 2 pending cases currently under litigation. Council, please note entering into a closed session for this stated reason requires a 2/3 majority affirmative vote of the entire council. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Bulger, seconded by Councilor Truzano to recess for the purpose of moving into closed session pursuant to Section 8E and H of the Open Meetings Act. For the purpose of moving into closed session to consult with legal counsel, limiting discussion to the 2 pending cases currently under litigation. Again, this action requires an affirmative 2/3 majority of the entire council to move forward. Council, do we have any questions? Madam Clerk, we have a roll call, please.
Counselor May,
Yes.
Counselor Kane,
Aye.
Counselor Winchesky,
Yes.
Counselor Stibbits,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Bulger,
Yes.
and Counselor Trezano.
Aye.
All ayes.
Thank you. This motion carries. I ask now for a motion to limit the participation in this closed session to council members, police chief, mayor, city manager, city attorney, city clerk, and legal counsel. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
how about the assistant city manager?
She's going to be, I believe she's heading home.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry.
But of course. Motion by Counselor Johnson, seconded by Counselor May to limit the participation in this closed session to council members, police chief, mayor, city manager, city attorney, city clerk, and legal counsel. Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Ladies and gentlemen, council is obligated to only deliberate in this closed session. Any decisions must be voted upon in open session. This public meeting is now adjourned, and I ask that you excuse yourselves to the lobby area in order for council to move forward in closed session. Upon completion of discussion during this session, we will reconvene in chambers as an open meeting.